So what was the most challenging deals that you've done?
There's just not a ton of risk, and there's just not a whole lot of potential pitfalls in storage compared to the other asset classes. But there is one. I'll just leave the name of the city out. But we looked at this facility, and it was an acquisition. It was a turnaround project. And a distressed seller was getting ready to leave, and we had to replace a roof, and they hadn't raised rates in a while. I mean, we had nowhere to go but up in this facility. We were going to replace all the doors because they were first generation doors, but it was cinder block buildings, very solid, just a small site with the ability to maybe expand by buying a lot next door. Well, we looked at the rates and where the market was going, and we saw that there was a lot of growth coming. There was a new manufacturing facility coming in down the road. There was planned residential neighborhoods coming in right nearby. All of this, it was right on this major road where all this expansion was occurring between the next town. This was on the south side of town, and it was all expanding towards the north side of the next town on this high U.S. highway, divided highway that our facility was on with a huge traffic count. So we bought it. We replaced the roof, and we replaced all the doors, cleaned it all up, do all the things that we do. And then it all fell apart, meaning the plant didn't come to town, the residential didn't take off. All this planned development that was coming in just south of our facility, like almost literally next door on down, all of it went to the town down the road. That mayor or that town did a better job of wooing all the jobs and development and everything down there. And unfortunately, none of it happened at our site. And so we sat there, and our rates, we could increase a little bit, but it wasn't anywhere near what we had anticipated. And so we didn't lose any money. We just didn't, we thought most of our projects we go into, we need to double our money. And that's how we measure the profit and whether our time was well spent on this. And we didn't double our money on this project, but our investors all made money. We made money. We get out a little bit later than we thought, and it just didn't turn out to be as lucrative. But it was a solid single, and we probably had to bunt and then run to first base is what we had to do. But it wasn't the grand slam home run that we had expected when we got into it.
So when you try to double your money, what time period is that?
Yeah, 5 years at the outset. So if it costs us $4 million to develop a facility, once we get it built and then stabilized, we'd like to be selling it for $8 million. If we buy something for $2.5 million, we'd like to be selling it for $5 million. However you want to slice it. If we're able to double the value within 5 years, that is the goal.
What do you prefer, a build or renovate?
Yeah, so there's really 3 practices that we utilize, all 3 in our company, and that is you can build from the ground up. And the beauty of that is that is the ultimate in creating value in real estate. If you start with a piece of dirt and then you put a building on it, it increases the value, and then you put an income stream inside of those buildings, that's how you create the most value. Buying an existing facility is a little more difficult, but it has to be, you have to buy it cheap. It has to have a lot of upside. So maybe it's high vacancy. Maybe they haven't raised the rates in 10 years, as we just talked about, or they haven't added renter's insurance, or selling locks, boxes, moving supplies, and they don't have a truck rental dealership or agency out front. All those things that we do to increase the value that we can do, and we like that because there's an income stream in place already that allows us to get the loan to buy the facility, and then we can add on after that. But our favorite is the hybrid. It's in between. It's a conversion, which is buying these old warehouses, grocery stores, industrial buildings, where we get the shell for pennies on the dollar. It's already built. The zoning's in place. We don't have to wait for the city and approval from the zoning board. But then we go and build out and fit out the inside with sometimes, most of the time, if we can, we're adding a mezzanine, either a second story or a second story and a third story. And then doubling or tripling the net rentable square foot inside of the building, adding elevators to it. And then once we get those stabilized, that nets us usually a little bit more than a ground-up development, typically way more than an acquisition, and we can do it in a shorter time frame because we already start without having to go through the zoning and approval process, and we've already got the shell in place.
So when you purchase an existing, you said a supermarket, so a typical supermarket would already have AC in place. Do you then convert them to all AC air conditioning units?
Yeah, all the buildings, the multi-story that we build and any conversions, they're all temperature controlled. And so depending upon where they're at in the country, then we heat them and cool them. And usually we can't use those systems. Sometimes we can use a little bit of them, but they're just because of the ductwork and the size of them, we have to push air through 3 floors and do it a little bit differently. And so we're typically going in with our own HVAC system.
I would imagine that you guys are very efficient at what you do. So how do you assess and improve your operational, keep your costs low, keep your rate high?
I think it's, from a construction and conversion standpoint, we have a handful of contractors, general contractors, project manager companies and subs that we work with and suppliers that we're frequent flyer. We have frequent flyer miles with them. And in other words, we get discounts because we do so much business with them. So that's one way to keep the cost down on the development side and the acquisition and conversion side. As far as operations, that is not my forte, but we've got the best people in place to monitor the rates and ahead of time set a proper budget, proper marketing strategy to be able to make sure that we capture all the eyeballs of people that are looking for storage in that market, and we're marketing in the right places and not overspending our marketing budget. And then just operating as efficiently as possible and just keeping those expenses down by way of utilizing as much technology as possible so that our payroll isn't as high, keeping an eye on property taxes and mitigating those, doing cost segregation studies, as well as doing a few different things that we can do on the front end with the acquisition and splitting up the building and the goodwill to save on property taxes. And it's just a whole lot of little things. We do have a closing and transition checklist that has over 250 items on it, things that we're going to do prior to and once we buy it, to make sure that we're just driving to the bottom line.
So what are the top 3 amenities or features that every facility must have in your portfolio?
Yeah, when people are looking initially, or what they're attracted to when they find us on their phone or whether they're searching on their laptop, when they reach our site, clean, safe, and secure. That's the main thing. So they want to see nice, shiny, gleaming, place to store their stuff. Not that it matters because it's just stuff, and the stuff doesn't care what school zone it's in or if there's a pool out back or anything else. But they like to know that it's in a very clean building, that it's well lit, that it's their stuff is going to be safe, and they're going to be safe if they're going in and out of the facility. So having 24-hour access by way of a key fob once you are in and have a unit there, that there may be security on site, that we have digital video recording systems and a full-blown security system in case after hours if somebody isn't there, a security guard that their items are watched. Having the ease of being able to get in and out by way of a key fob, a gate code, and getting into their unit, that seems to be key as well. So all those things that just make the customer experience really easy, seamless, and attractive. That's what these folks are looking for. Clean, safe, secure site.
All right, let's talk about something fun.
All right.
I'm sure you got tons of stories. I mean, having that many units, you got to have people that didn't pay and where you got to seize the stuff inside. What are some of the fun stuff that you've gotten?
Yeah, I wish I had some stories. I'm sure that our managers and some of our auctioneers do, but I don't get a lot of those, and we don't have a lot of those. There are a couple of instances where one of my facilities that I don't own any longer. It was located over in a part here of town here in Indianapolis where all the drag racing teams are located. The NHRA drag racing teams, they're all located over towards the track is, and where they hold the U.S. Nationals. And so they're just headquartered here in Indianapolis. And so one of the units went up for auction. They didn't pay, and it was on one of the racing companies. And I happened to be there that day and opened up the unit. We know who's there, but we never know what's inside of it. And we saw these racing parts, and then all of a sudden it was the owner that of the unit that showed up and paid. He had to buy it. If he'd have just paid his bill, he would have bought it. He would have saved a whole heck of a lot of money because it's started getting bid up. But there were engines in there, and there were body parts and everything else. And I have the ability to, even as an owner, to be able to bid on those. And I was salivating when I saw that. So I missed out. There was also another one. Somebody did buy a couple of units. One was filled with racing bikes, old antique vintage road racing bikes that somebody walked away with for a song. And there was another one that had a lot of photo equipment in it that was worth tens of thousands. Some of these people, even though we say, don't put anything in here that's worth more than $5,000, we force them to buy insurance anyways, but it's just a good practice. But there's some of these auctions where some folks have put some very, very expensive and very valuable items inside of these units that we've seen go through auction. Some tool auctions that were not tool auctions, but units that went off at auction that had a lot of tools in it. And but no, we haven't been unpleasantly surprised. No dead bodies or meth labs or anything like that showing up. So it's pretty boring business.
Bummer.
The
Bummer,
exciting
Scott.
ones, well, the exciting ones are on TV, but you also have to ask, how did those guys get so lucky that all those exciting ones end up on television?
That's right, yeah. This episode is brought to you by Jet Lending. For over 20 years, Jet Lending has been helping real estate investors succeed. They offer 100% financing so you can be in at $0 at closing. I can always count on Jet Lending to fund my deals. If you're looking to fund your next deal, contact our friend over at jetlending.com.